Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mayor John Tory.
Well, thank you very much, Aidan, and good evening, everybody. First of all, may I say thanks. I mean, I'm going to say quite a few thank yous, but I think it's never often enough that I get a chance to do it at this event, even though we're having it virtually. And I should tell you that I've had a chance to probably visit with more people and have a quieter conversation with them at each of the tables that I visited than you can when you're in a big room. But there's no substitute for being together, and I hope we will be next year at this time. But I want to thank Peter and Cynthia, and I guess they've had some cyberspace issues for the moment, but it's so nice that they agreed to co-host this. And of course, they are by far the biggest celebrities in Stratford and Toronto, way bigger than Justin Bieber. He ranks a poor third down there in Stratford, but for them to lend their time tonight is much appreciated. I want to say thank you to the artists, because the artists have really made this evening very special. And I hope if you haven't had a chance, you can go and pay a virtual visit to some of the rooms where the artists perform beyond the ones we've seen in the kind of the plenary session, as it were, here. I want to say thank you to Claire Hopkinson. We were discussing at a couple of the different rooms I visited before we sat down to dinner, as it were, just what a bundle of energy she is and how passionately committed she is to the arts. And I am too, but she puts me to shame in terms of her commitment, and she's just constantly positive and energetic, and with her whole team really makes things go. I want to say thank you to Karen Miller. Karen may be somebody you don't know from the art scene, although some of you probably do, but she does a lot of the fundraising part of this, and you give and she gets, and it makes it possible for us to support all the artists we do and some of the programs that you saw replicated in the video. And she's done a great job this year, because it's much harder to do it for these kinds of events. Although I was making the case to people that if you think about it, you don't have to get dressed up. I'll come back to that in a minute. You don't have to get dressed up. You don't have to go anywhere. You can stay for as long or short as you want. You can eat your own food, drink your own wine. And so there are pluses to all this. But again, there's no substitute for being in the same room. I want to as well thank Marcia, who's putting up with my fast talking and doing the ASL tonight. I warned her when we chatted before backstage, as it were, that I spoke quickly, and I'll try to restrain myself. She said, "Don't I have a copy of your script?" And I said, "There isn't one." So she's having to struggle through that. So I want to thank her. And finally, I want to just make mention of the fact that 3 of our children, Chris, George, and Susan, are at the event or attending the event. And Barb has been with me all evening, but she wisely has learned over the years that she leaves for my speeches, because she's heard so many of those that she just leaves. But she was with me at all the different rooms, visiting with people and thanking them. I am very happy to be here with people from public office that share that privilege with me. And I have a list, and it may not be complete, but I'll just mention them, ones that I have that I know are with us tonight. Members of Parliament Julie DeBruzen and Adam Vaughan, both of whom are very committed to the arts. I spoke with them last night at a meeting of all the MPs from Toronto, and we talked about the arts. Our deputy mayors, Michael Thompson and Anna Bilo, again, 2 people hugely committed to the arts, as is Councillor Gary Crawford. They all are. Gary Crawford, Paula Fletcher, Joe Cressy, Paul Ainsley, Shelley Carroll, James Pasternak, John Fillion, Cynthia Lai, and Mike Layton. These are all people, I think really the whole city council, without exception, is very supportive of the arts, and there's a reason for that. And I think the reason is really what I want to just talk about in my own brief remarks, because I don't think it's ever been more apparent, both because of what they have done to keep people on an even keel to the extent they have been able to do so during the pandemic, music and books and visual art and things we've seen on television, productions that have gone to stream themselves to both stay alive, but also to entertain the rest of us. I think we realize, how much the arts, that we miss the arts when they're not present, because during parts of the shutdown, they couldn't be present. Of course, we've seen what an important industry is by the devastation that has been wrought on so many different companies and individual artists and others. And I want to just say the Toronto Arts Foundation really came through. In the beginning parts of this pandemic, they found ways to both redirect internal funds and to fundraise to the tune of close to $1 million, $900,000, I think, and hundreds of artists benefit from that at their greatest hour of need. I was saying to a business organization that I spoke to last night, it's one thing to have a recession, where things slow down. That's tough enough, especially for artists who are by and large self-employed. It's another thing entirely to have a shutdown like we've had twice now, where the revenue sources completely dry up. The theaters are closed, the concert venues are closed, the art galleries are closed. It really is tougher. And in fact, there are figures that have been brought to my attention that indicate that the greatest loss of all in any single segment in terms of income has been between and among artists. And that's not a competition you want to win. And a lot of other people have suffered, but artists have suffered disproportionately. And that is why the work of the foundation to step forward at the beginning and subsequently to be followed by the same organization with our help, making sure that we could accelerate and maintain the grants has been important to being a lifeline of sorts to something that is so important to the well-being of the city and to the people who live here. I want to mention in particular one gift, and there are many of you that have made gifts tonight to help with our programs and to help artists directly, which this will do. I mean, when you saw that video, those are the artists who are the real beneficiaries. I mean, sure, the audiences benefit hugely from being out at different things in the parks. I went to a couple myself this past summer to see, but the other beneficiaries are, of course, the artists who get a chance to perform in front of crowds of people in the city who might not have seen their work or heard of them before. But one of the people that really stepped up during the pandemic was the Hal Jackman Foundation, which donated $1 million to the Toronto Arts Foundation to support some of the smaller arts organizations that were really struggling because the donor base dried up, the tickets weren't being sold, galleries weren't open, theaters weren't open. You know the story better than I do. So thanks to the Hal Jackman Foundation, and thanks to all the philanthropists and donors who have really stepped up. I should say that something that's important for you to take note of is that as we go about developing a plan for the period of the recovery, I want you to know that the arts and culture are going to be at the center of that. It was accidental timing, but I think it is such fortuitous timing that something that I had indicated when I was seeking re-election a couple of years ago I would do, which was to declare a year of public art in Toronto in 2021, is something that is going to proceed with significant public support. I think it is going to turn out to be just really beautifully timed within the context of taking public art, something that's very visual, very accessible, taking it right across the city, using some of our artists to do that work and to put it in front of the public and expand something that I think, if we're being honest, has been more of, not exclusively, but more of a downtown thing, to take it right across the city so people can see and appreciate and enjoy public art, and the artists can have the experience of doing their work in different parts of the city. We've seen how well that has worked with the street art program that we've had right across the city, and I think it is a spectacular success. It's very much driven by grassroots artists and by grassroots community endeavors and by the business improvement associations. And so I want to just encourage you. Artworks TO is what the name of the Year of Public Art is. It is a special year next year to get it kicked off. It's the same year we'll take Nuit Blanche citywide. It was an ambition that I had from year one. Nuit Blanche is a favorite event of mine in the city's artistic and cultural life. And it was not surprisingly a smash success there. And we're going to take it right across the city now so that Nuit Blanche isn't just a downtown thing, as special as it was downtown and will be going forward. But artworks will be right across the city, and we'll celebrate creativity and we'll celebrate community engagement. And we'll kick off a 10-year public art strategy, which is something that I'm extremely devoted to, and I think is going to make a big difference. I don't know how many of you have been along Adelaide Street, for example, and seen a new piece of public art put there by Oxford, but I just think it's a fabulous piece of art. It's very, it's extraordinary. It catches your attention. But I just think it looks so great to have that on a street in our city that was, kind of ordinary looking, notwithstanding some of the great buildings that have been put in place and all the great work that goes on in those places. So we'll celebrate our public art and we'll celebrate the expansion of that public art. And I want to say thank you to people who've stepped up already to support it, because we're relying on, yes, significant government support in very tough financial times. But I made sure that money was protected, and so did Gary Crawford. But I want to say thank you to Quadrio Property Group, Ontario Cultural Attractions Fund, Union Station, the Weston Family Foundation, Oxford Properties, and Castle Point Numa, to name a few, who have stepped forward and said they would support the Year of Public Art, and say to you that opportunities are still open to take part in that great event. Just before we go off to see a short video that tells you about public art, I'm looking for something that I wrote down here. One of our sponsors tonight, one of the people that supported this event, is a foundation called the Rossi Foundation, and they run a wonderful program. They're getting a free plug here, but I looked at their material as I tried to look up the background of those that I wasn't familiar with who were supporting this event. And they have a program that is called Art with Impact, which is meant to sort of use art as a means of encouraging better mental health among young people. And on their website, they list their mission as being as follows: A future where artists are revered as cultural icons of courage and change, enabling young people to communicate freely and fearlessly about their mental health. And I wanted to just amend that because I thought those words were so apropos to say to you, the people in the arts community and supporters of the arts, that in my heart, I've had a long association with the arts, and my mother, frankly, and my grandmother, both kind of probably instilled that into me. But I believe in and support and enjoy all forms of the arts, some more than others, as we all do. But I also understand the incredibly important role it plays in the most diverse city in the world. You've heard me say this before. You know, in a city where some people can't speak to each other in their first languages, they can all stand and enjoy a concert or look at a piece of art and experience it, or go to a dance performance, or, you know, attend live theater, and on it goes, all the other things I didn't mention. And I just think in our city, it brings people together. In a country as vast as this, it allows us to tell our stories to each other, which is so important, not just the stories of Canada, but the stories of the people who came and chose Canada and made up the city, because it's so important that we understand each other. I think it's one of the things that, you know, differentiates us from others, is that we make an effort to understand each other and to learn about each other and to celebrate the things that maybe differ between and among us. And so I just amended that wording from the wonderful Rossi Foundation, which, apologies to them because I'm not as articulate as whoever helped them draw up that mission statement. A future where artists are revered as cultural icons of courage and change and inclusion and understanding and storytelling, enabling young people and all people to communicate freely and fearlessly, yes, about their mental health, but also to understand each other, to understand our stories, to showcase ourselves and our great country to the world. And I want Toronto to be back to that soon. I think the arts have kept people going during the pandemic. I think they will help us in a new era of growth coming out of this pandemic. I'm really bullish about this city. Our core values, which include a commitment to creativity and to artists, our core values, which say we look after each other, which has been so much on display during this pandemic, where we've stepped forward, not just as government or nonprofit organizations, but as people, to help each other. The smart people we have here, the public education system we have, the way we welcome people from around the world, and our doors will be flung open again as soon as we can to bring the best and the brightest and just people who want to live their life here. I'm very bullish about Toronto. And so the arts are going to be a huge part of that. And I thank you for supporting that by being here tonight. We will be gathered together in person again next year. And I'll be back, I think, a little later in the program to announce just how much you helped us this year, because it is quite extraordinary for an event that didn't actually happen in person. So thank you very much for your attention and for your patience.